All right. Well, I guess it's going.
Let's
Um,
ready. Let's go. Discuss. I love freaking Star Wars. Big news today.
yes. All right. So three, two, one. Hey, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the inaugural episode of Sci-Fi Annotated, the podcast. So I am joined by Connor, who is new to HN. For everyone that has no idea who Connor is, and I'm introducing him like I'm assuming you guys already know who he is. He's the head of marketing here at HN. So, any cool things on the marketing front, on the engagement front, thank him. Uh, and yeah, but also he's a huge sci-fi fan, especially Star Wars. So it makes him the perfect person to have with me today on this podcast. Now, what we're talking about today, just to list it out for those who are either listening to the full audio on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, versus segments on YouTube. We're going to talk the Star Wars updates with Mando 2 in the High Republic, then this John Boyega interview that came out, and then we're going to finish off the episode with some Dune talk and this Game of Thrones news. Well, not Game of Thrones news, but the Game of Thrones showrunners are developing a new series. So we're going to talk about that. But yeah, I guess before we get into the first topic, though, Connor, you want to, in your own words, introduce yourself, say some stuff?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Connor. So think of me as the marketing guy. More the big fan of Star Wars, the big beard, everything going on. Real excited. Big news today with the new Star Wars announcement. Mandalorian season 2, huge. Hope everyone's pumped. That's pretty much my intro right there. Right back to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. When I was talking to Connor, actually, for those who are listening to this, right? When I was talking to Connor about HN stuff, doing things with HN, the sign was right there because I think you had like a Star Wars sticker on your laptop. I think it was your laptop. And I mean, people don't just have that, you got to be a fan of Star Wars to have that. But you were asking me about like Mandalorian and Clone Wars and stuff. So I was like, I already know you were a fan. Since you asked me before I ever asked you. But nice. So our second segment here, we got John Boyega. Geez, I just said his name wrong. That's terrible. John Boyega. Give it the justice, the respect it deserves. But he did a very blunt interview with GQ. He's had a very just very blunt kind of, I think, therapeutic summer. Honestly, getting a lot of things off his chest. A lot of people after they finish a movie franchise, it seems like they want to be hush about it and say very little, if not anything, unless they had a fantastic experience with it. But I don't think it's a rare knowledge kind of thing that a lot of the actors that were in the sequel trilogy, for the most part, want nothing to do with it anymore. I mean, they've moved on. Daisy Ridley, not too long ago, said she is struggling actually to get new work since this. Adam Driver, sorry, not Ryder, geez. Adam Driver doesn't seem to have the same issue. I think a lot of that was because Adam Driver was a lot more aggressive in terms of being in other movies while Star Wars is going on. So I don't think he really, it's not like a thing where he was basically just in Star Wars. Now Star Wars is over, he's trying to get into something else. But John Boyega, the only real other movie I can remember I know that he was in outside of Star Wars during the sequel trilogy time period was the Pacific Rim Uprising film, which I do not remember liking. But I also don't think it was his fault. I remember not liking it more so for like the writing and the story more than anything else. But anyways, he defends, J.J. Abrams and basically talks about how he feels Finn and Rose in the sequel trilogy were really mistreated and misadvertised at the same time by Disney and Lucasfilm. And he says, and I quote, "Everybody needs to leave my boy alone," referring to J.J. Abrams. "He wasn't even supposed to come back and try to save your shit. You get yourself involved in projects and you're not necessarily going to like everything. But what I would say to Disney is do not bring out a black character, market them to be much more important in the franchise than they actually are, and then have them pushed to the side. It's not good. I'll say it straight up. Like, you guys knew what to do with Daisy Ridley's character. You knew what to do with Adam Driver. You knew what to do with these other people. But when it came to Kelly Marie Tran, who plays Rose, and when it came to John Boyega, F it all. So what do you want me to say? What they want you to say is, I enjoyed being a part of it. It was a great experience. I'll take that deal when it's a great experience. They gave all the nuance to Adam Driver, all the nuance to Daisy Ridley. Let's be honest. Daisy knows this. Adam knows this. Everybody knows this. I'm not exposing anything. So what are your thoughts after hearing that? Obviously, a lot of frustration.
Yeah, I mean, just underlying, 100%. I mean, I think the whole way they went about it as character arc was just, there was so much more potential that could have gone into it. You really didn't really get to know the character at all as much. At least in my opinion,
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, he's not saying anything wrong, I don't think. They really wasted the character. I mean, I remember when I saw The Force Awakens, 9 out of 10 posters had Finn with a lightsaber. You thought he was gonna, and honestly, I was really excited for the sequel trilogy at first after the initial trailer, right? Because I thought basically Finn was gonna be the Luke Skywalker-like character. Rey was gonna be the Han Solo-like character, and I thought, like, I had a vibe, like a feeling that Kylo Ren was going to be related to either, Luke Skywalker or Leia. You know what I mean? Like, in terms of being the next Skywalker, kind of being a part of the story, to keep that connection going, because they would need someone personally connected to either Luke or Leia, to really drag those characters back in the story. I thought, but I'm disappointed by how they did it. It's.
I mean, taking into account, like, how'd you feel about the whole casino scene with Finn?
Dude, it was terrible. I mean, and I feel bad for Rose's character too, because they introduced this character. They hype up I see what John Boyega is saying, right? Because they really hype up these characters. Let me fix my camera a little bit. Just a little bit. All right. Like, they really hype up these characters upon introducing them and basically do nothing with the characters. I mean, Kelly Marie Tran, I feel bad for her because they really hyped up her inclusion in this movie, right? They tried pulling all the strings in terms of getting a lot of excitement, just because, you're having an Asian actor in the forefront. I mean, they really, let's be honest, they played the diversity card in marketing, just like they did with John Boyega.
Forced romance, big fan on that.
Yeah, and then they do nothing. And then the next movie, they do almost worse than nothing with the character, in terms of having the character there and then doing nothing with them versus just them basically not even being in it from the get-go. So
that's great.
Yeah, I mean, so like with John Boyega's character, the things I was really disappointed with is, one, they hyped him up to that he was going to be a Jedi. They hyped him up to be Force sensitive. We were teased to get a really interesting story about a stormtrooper defecting and becoming a part of the resistance. And I mean, like, can you imagine like a stormtrooper defecting, then being Force sensitive, which maybe played a part in them kind of being able to defect from the brainwashing of the First Resistance. So you have that. They become a rebellion leader, potentially lead a stormtrooper uprising. Then you also have all the interesting stuff pertaining to Captain Phasma that went nowhere.
Nice.
It's just so much disappointment. And then, the same thing for Kelly Marie Tran. I just think, John Boyega in this instance is much more a victim of what he's talking about than she is, just because she was never from the get-go teased as being like a lead character. Like, you always knew she was a supporting character for the story. But Finn was a lead character. Like, he was on like every poster with the lightsaber, which is a big deal because that was Anakin's lightsaber. That was Luke's lightsaber before he got the green one. So it's like, it was, bamboozled, I guess would be the best word.
I mean, on the bright side, he's pretty good to play as in Star Wars Battlefront 2 game, but I'd take him over Adam Versio any day.
Yeah, I mean, it does suck. I mean, it does suck what they did. I know in the original draft for episode 9, Colin Trevorrow's, which was going to be titled The Duel of the Fates instead of Rise of Skywalker, um, Finn at least had a better role. He eventually did lead a stormtrooper uprising. He did lead the assault on the ground assault, at least in terms of recapturing, I think it was Coruscant, actually, from the First Order. I mean, like, there was a lot more he did that really built upon his background as a previous stormtrooper. And they didn't just make him kind of like a joke character, basically. And the same thing for Rose, too. But it's a shame. It's a shame they wasted such a character.
Just their connection, I think, between all the big characters with Rey and all of them, did it kind of feel forced? I feel like their kind of friendship between everyone kind of felt forced because like they were apart the entire movie. And you kind of maybe there's stuff going on in comics and stuff, but like you don't really see that in the film whatsoever.
No, I agree, and I totally forgot to mention Poe earlier. Poe was the Han Solo character. Let's be honest, not Rey.
Yeah.
The only reason I said I thought Rey would be like the Han Solo character was because I thought they were going to try subverting our expectations of, instead of making Rey the Luke Skywalker, from a desert planet kind of thing, becomes a hero character. Like she would actually be more of the smuggler kind of, rogue character that you never know what they might have under their sleeve. Obviously I was wrong. My expectations were subverted, but not in the way that I would have wanted to be subverted. That makes any sense. But yeah, I agree with you, dude. Like literally Poe, Finn, Rey. I mean, where did that friendship come from?
Yeah, there's nothing really there.
Like Poe and Finn makes sense.
Yeah, you could argue. Yeah, they had a good starting out at the very beginning. They're coming in like, why are you saving me first 5 minutes of the film? Which was great.
I mean, even oddly enough, right? Like even Poe, Poe, Finn, and Rose, even as like a trio, made more sense than Rey, Poe, and Finn. It's just kind of like, I feel like they, this is, I think, a problem with like, it's like the inverse, oddly enough, of the original trilogy. No, not original. Sorry, the prequel trilogy, because I feel like with the original trilogy, right, they did a good job of having just enough outlined that they were building towards that they can make little changes that added to it, but they always knew like the end goal, right? Like Lucas always knew in the original trilogy, Luke was going to become a hero, go from farm boy to hero, all that stuff. All the little details though, came later, like the whole twin thing with Leia came later. I'm your father came later, all that stuff. But the core story was always planned. With the prequels, I feel like it was kind of the same way, but to like more of an extreme. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just that we knew Anakin was going to eventually become Vader, but we knew Anakin would become Vader, and at the same time, Obi-Wan, what he would become, and we knew that Padme was going to eventually like die, and that the Empire would rise, Republic would fall, Palpatine would turn. Like we knew all the stuff already, so it was a little, I think, more constrained, and it made it worse because Lucas went from being like the creative overseer to like actually having like the directed stuff, which wasn't his strong suit. And I don't blame him for the prequels because he tried giving it to other directors and they said no because they said it was Lucas's baby and they didn't want to be the guy that potentially ruined Star Wars.
Yeah.
Now enter the sequel trilogy, and I feel like they screwed up because they did the opposite of that in terms of not having any long-term plan together.
I mean, think back when the first movie came out from the new trilogy.
Yeah.
The whole idea was Rey came from nothing. Yeah. And then we see a complete flip-flop in the newer one. Spoiler alert, I hope everyone's seen the movie by now at this point. But, with Palpatine
Mhm.
surviving. You know, and being the daughter there. The inner rage. They're trying to get back to the rage. You know, back then I was like, yeah, I kind of want it to be kind of a link or something. Yeah, I could kind of play around with comes from nothing, but
Yeah.
the new movies just made me a little upset. I don't know. It's different.
I think the biggest thing that made me upset about how they did the twist like that is that they did it in a very uninspiring way. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Because then it kind of made this like they kind of forced. I mean, even in episode 8, they kind of like forced this connection between Rey and Kylo.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the more interesting and original development would have been focusing on Finn. Like Rey could still become a Jedi too, right? Like I think that would have been cool. But you could have them be two different types of Jedi, and you don't need Finn to be like a descendant somehow of Mace Windu either. That would have been cool if they did like a twist where like Mace Windu somehow survived and like had a family, and somehow that ended up being like Finn. That actually would have been an interesting story. I don't think anyone would have expected. But no, like I think it would have been really cool to have Finn, like I said before, become a Jedi in his own right, and then through his background, knowing firsthand the tragedies, like when in episode 8, when Rose took him to the casino planet thing and was like, this is the horrors of basically slavery and war and all these things. I'm not the only one. I know a lot of people out there were also saying this, but like, who are you preaching to? Like in terms of Finn, all the stormtroopers were basically taken as kids, brainwashed to become stormtroopers. And then, they didn't even have names, they were called numbers, FN, whatever. And he was literally a soldier in a war. I mean, like his introduction to us in the series was being one of numerous soldiers witnessing a cold-blooded massacre.
Yep.
Basically, not witnessing it, being a part of it. I mean, but he didn't actually kill them. So I thought, yeah, it was totally just like, from that moment, it was obvious they had no idea what to do with the character. They had no idea what the character's identity was. They had no idea his development arc. I mean, it could have been so interesting, especially as soon as they what was it called? In The Force Awakens, when they had that fight scene, like the meme one where they were like FN whatever, right?
FN one, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, and like the stormtrooper had like that lightsaber thing that kind of like swirled. Not lightsaber thing, but the weapon that swirled.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
The whole time after that, I thought it would have been the coolest thing if, since Rey got the lightsaber during the movie, if they gave Finn a weapon like that was basically a lightsaber without being a lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
Until they were able to give him a lightsaber. Like I was really hoping what would happen is, Finn would gain a weapon like that while Rey gained, I guess, Anakin / Luke's old lightsaber. And then they would find Luke, and then Luke would train Rey and Finn to be like the two new leaders, basically, of the next Jedi Order. And nothing happened with that. But it would have been really cool because, you would have a story where you would have a very interesting perspective leading the new Jedi Order. Like it wouldn't be these pacifists raised from childhood about, the greatness of the light side and this and that. You would have one Jedi leader be an ex-soldier, literally raised on the horrors of doing that to children, taking them young and basically brainwashing them, which, let's be honest, the Jedi did, just like the Empire and the First Order did. So you would have that, and that kind of perspective leading the way of the future on one hand, and knowing firsthand the horrors of war and all that stuff, which would ideally, push for peace and all that. Then you would have Rey, who, coming from nothing, would really have a perspective, you would think, of appreciating the little things, being really grateful, those more optimistic tendencies, I guess, that Jedis are supposed to have. And all in all, I think both of their perspectives coming together would have corrected the misdeeds, for the most part, of the prior Jedi Order, because they probably wouldn't take kids when they're young just because they're force sensitive to be force raised as Jedi. I mean, it's just they had the chance to really do something cool with the character, and instead we have. I think you said in the beginning, nothing but lost potential. Which potential. Everyone has potential for the most part, but it doesn't mean crap unless you do anything with it. So,
I mean, going back to Finn, did you get that vibe that he was like a full leader from the beginning? Like they kind of
he's a what?
Like a big the main leader of everyone, kind of like everyone's inspired to look at of everything going on. And I feel like they kind of pushed that, but you never really get to saw him like lead the entire front or anything like that before.
Yeah. So I agree. He literally had the entire build, right, of that story arc, because defecting, basically being a coward in the beginning, he had all the makings of someone who eventually grows into becoming a reluctant and then ideally charismatic and successful leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that was never touched upon. And instead they forced Rey to be a leader, but even I don't know why I did this, right? They even wrote her to the very end as basically not really knowing how to be a leader, and she was never really secure in herself as a leader. So it was like, till the very end, they tried making Leia the leader, which is cool.
The one saving grace, though, is I guess you have Poe Dameron, being a leader there, just from in the skies at least. Looked at that, but who's the ground guy of everything going on with the war?
Yeah.
Just I agree. There's potential there. He could have filled that area there, and then that'd been sweet scenes just to watch him just kind of lead the entire front of all the rebels going into it. The resistance.
Yeah. I mean, I think before we move on to the next topic, the biggest thing I kind of take away from this whole thing is the first face we saw in the Star Wars The Force Awakens teaser trailer was Finn arising, taking off his mask in Jakku. That was the first person we ever saw.
It looks sick
in there. Yeah, it was new. It was different. It immediately got our attention. It wasn't the same old. You know what I mean? I feel like you don't have to subvert everyone's expectations. You know what I mean? Like they did in episode 8, whether for good or for bad. Because I know some people liked it. Obviously, a lot of people hated it. Sometimes you could just tell something different. And the story of Finn, as it was introduced to us, would have been that, I think. And I think that would have gone a really long way. And still been as successful. Because, I mean, why not, right? Why not? But it's whatever. But anyways, yeah, so I guess in summary for this segment, Finn, good. How Finn was used, terrible. And unfortunately, we'll probably never see the character again. So, yeah. But I'm wired. Anyways, the vibe went down for a bit, but let's bring it back up. So yeah, that's it for this first episode of Sci-Fi Annotated. I actually saw a comment on our We're Back video, and someone said they recommend us calling it Sci-Fi Fantasy Annotated. That actually was a way we're going to actually. Fun fact. Originally, this podcast was called Sense of Wonder. Long story for that, but basically, the whole sci-fi thing, Sense of Wonder. We took the slang for that for Sense of Wonder, and that was going to be our creative name for the series, but it was kind of a little too meta. So we're not using it, but we did actually, that was considered. But the problem with Sci-Fi and Fantasy Annotated is that it's just way too long of a name. Mm-hmm. So it'd be really hard to fit that in stuff like titles sometimes and tweets and all that without it probably clipping, and we don't want that. So hopefully Sci-Fi Annotated, even though it's not politically correct and encompassing fantasy as well, hopefully it just kind of gets the idea across, so to speak. Just like Mando isn't the character's real name necessarily, but everyone says it and what we're talking about. So
my mind is blown right now. I always thought it was Mando.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it for this episode. Connor, thanks for podcasting with us today.
Always.
How do you feel? It's your first HM podcast.
Shoulders are feeling a little tight. Feeling pretty good though. The real question is, how long is a parsec?
That's a good question. Honestly, part of me just wants to leave it at that. Just cut static image. That's it. End scene. Yeah. But thanks everyone that's watching this. We really appreciate it if you guys watched all the way through, whether it's on segments or also just full audio on the podcasting platforms like SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, et cetera. Comment below. Leave us some viewer questions. What are some topics you'd like to see us talk about in future episodes? And as well, any suggestions, of course, as always. Obviously we're not in a multi-million-dollar professional set. But, just any suggestions you think we could do to improve the quality of the podcast, whether it's audio quality, visual graphics work, whatever it is, just let us know and we'll do our best going forward. But thanks for, listening to us today, and we'll catch you guys later. Oh, and follow us on our social media. It will be on the graphic and description. But yeah, we'll catch you later.
Signing off.
Sweet.